and loaded. Truth on my blade, every line's exploded. You swing your words, I counter with precision. Battle of reason, this is my mission. Raise your fist, let them know. No, raise your voice, let it blow. Woo! We clash our swords of reason. Cut through like no retreating. Yeah. No fear, no chain, no treason. Woo! We clash our swords of reason. We clash our swords of reason.
Welcome everybody to Swords of Reason right here on the SpeakeaZy show, where every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday logic meets passion. All right, if you're new here, the format is simple. Each debater gets 10 minutes for their opening statements, followed by 5 minutes of uninterrupted rebuttals. After that, we'll enter the arena for a full hour of back and forth debate. This is where, the iron gets to sharpen the iron. And finally, each side will deliver a 5-minute closing statement to lock in their case. Today's debate prompt: America's real security lies in fixing immigration, not patrolling the border. And today's debaters, on the affirmative side, we have LetheWaterKai, new to the Swords of Reason arena, but not new to debating, known for hosting live panels and chill conversational content. He's got relaxed discussions, audience engagement, and keeps the atmosphere approachable while still letting a range of viewpoints come to the table. And the link for both his YouTube channel and Twitch can be found in the description. And for the negative side, we have Steelborne, also has a channel you can find in the description. And his channel is rooted in Orthodox Christianity, focused on disciplined, fire-tested masculinity and unapologetic cultural critique. His content centers around conviction, tradition, and moral clarity as it relates to faith, manhood, and modern society. We're going to start with the affirmative tonight. So with that all being said, Lethe, whenever you are ready for your opening statement, I will start the timer up with your voice. And again, thank you both for being here.
Much appreciated, and thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So, getting to the idea of immigration in this country, start considering that anybody who is for the most part native born or come from people that are native born, came here through open border immigration. We showed up here, we had no business being here, and we were welcomed by the indigenous people to this land. And that was a beautiful thing. And when you consider that most of the illegal immigrants that are here in this country, I would say between 40 and 45% have come in through overstayed visas, that's 55% of the border that we have to worry about. So with that being the case, we keep pretty good eyes on the border. There are also certain portions of the border itself that we can't even manage to put border wall on. So there's about 12,000 miles of unbordered, about 1,200 miles of unbordered area. So the Rio Grande, even when it was being proposed that we put up a big, beautiful wall, there was no way you're putting up a wall in the Rio Grande. I don't know how many people would die trying to put up a wall across the Rio Grande. So then you consider the amount of people that are harmed from trying to get through the border, all these different things. All these people could be valuable means of our workforce. So when you look at what open borders would do for our country, which I'm not saying we need to have an entirely open border, but just open borders in general, and more scrutiny in regards to who's allowed to stay here, who's allowed to work, how things function, we would have increased GDP growth. We'd have an increase and more available labor supply. We would have more innovation and diversity, and we'd also have reduced enforcement costs from trying to put up walls, barriers, paying personnel. All these things could be pretty easily monitored at this point. We can use drone surveillance. We can get a pretty good idea where people are, where people are coming from, where the concentration of people is going to be. And so with that being the case, I don't think we need to worry so much about trying to reinforce the borders or even spend money, which is taxpayer dollars, in trying to enforce and put up more border wall, because it's just not effective, especially when you can just get a visa and just stay when you go to Disneyland. So I would propose we lower the barrier to entry for asylum seekers fleeing oppression, especially. You lower the wait time, but increase the vetting by increasing the judges and the funding within the immigration system for vetting those agents. then you expedite the removal of all violent criminals straight out of the U.S. system back to their home nation and allow them to decide if they want to be placed in a prison here or just be deported back home. Also, make sure there's ease of access for genuine asylum seekers that are escaping tyranny, first and foremost on that docket, and ensure humanitarian pathways aren't strangled by bureaucracy, even if it means welcoming more voices from oppressed corners of the world, because that is the entire point of our asylum system. When everything went down in World War II, we turned away a lot of people that could have been saved, and America never wanted to be a country that turns its back on people seeking freedom and help. So we allow for our asylum system, and we could have a more robust asylum system with more people reinforcing it. So I would say you allow any asylee from any country that's facing oppression, no allowing for special pleading, and go as far as to spend 10% of the U.S. military budget into the immigration system, because we wouldn't need as much of that to try and enforce all these things through military means, so that we could actually get more things done for the people that want to stay here and be a part of the American project. I think ultimately more open borders is a better idea. As you can see from our current immigration situation going down now, they had to make a caveat for people in the hospitality industry and people in agriculture. So you can already see that a aggressive immigration standard without anything to fill the gaps is going to be very brutal on our economy and on our workforce. So ultimately, I think we can rectify these things by just putting in common sense measures and having more judges. With that, I yield my time.
All right. Thank you for that opening statement, Lethe. And with that, we're going to hand the mic over to Steelborne. And whenever you're ready for your opening statement, Steelborne, I'll start the timer up with your voice.
Yeah. So, first issue with at least the prompt is that it kind of assumes a false dichotomy. It's either our options are to fix immigration, which that's going to have, that's going to be undefinable for the most part. Like it's going to be entirely informed by your worldview and entirely subjective to begin with, or we can have border enforcement. But they're not mutually exclusive, and actually you can't substitute one for the other. The assumption in the prompt is actually logically false. Immigration policy without enforcement is incoherent and unenforceable. Saying immigration policies alone provide security without border enforcement is like saying a homeowner is secure because he has rules about the guests that he allows in. While leaving the doors unlocked and windows open, this allows for anybody to come in virtually unopposed. If we have no enforcement of our borders, we can't remove people or prevent people from coming in. So we have to have strong borders and enforce them. Let's see. A system cannot provide security unless its rules can be enforced. Immigration law is meaningless without the ability to control entry. Border enforcement is the mechanism by which immigration law is enforced. Therefore, border enforcement is the necessary condition for national security. Necessary does not mean sufficient, but without it, nothing else works. Every immigration system assumes knowledge of who is entering the country, ability to stop unlawful entry, and capacity to remove violators. But without strongly defined borders that are heavily patrolled and enforced, there is no vetting, there is no prioritization, there is no enforcement, and there is no sovereignty. At that point, immigration policy becomes symbolic. And then for the rest of my opening, I'd actually like to address some of the points that he made in his opening. For starters, we didn't come over here and the Native Americans just welcomed us in with open arms. We conquered the land and we took it. Which, if you're going to make the argument of we stole the land, well, remember the rightful owner of the land is actually just the second to last person to own it. That's the way that everyone who has this view has. There is significant problems with an open borders policy of no way. Borders are actually going to be part of a nation's identity. Right? How would you define a nation? It would be culture, language, and borders. If you don't have strongly enforced borders, you don't have a nation. The argument that we should allow, all the illegal immigrants to keep coming in, because my GDP, this argument is so dumb and it's been debunked many times. Just so you know how GDP actually functions. If I walk up to you and I go, I'll give you $100 to eat that pile of shit right there. And then you do it and I give you the $100. And then we walk 20 feet and you see another one. You go, hey, I'll give you $100 to eat that pile of shit. and I do, the GDP has now gone up by $200 because money has changed hands. That's all that the GDP does. So just having more people that are here, having massive fucking weights on our benefit systems and our welfare systems. This is not, the juice is not worth the squeeze here, right? Why should we be trying to feed and clothe the world's people? That's not our job. America's priority should be American citizens and our struggles. Your argument for your point of we should let anybody in who is, suffering from oppression. We got to define oppression, right? So, people who are coming here illegally from, South American countries and just claiming asylum when they're not coming here for the purpose of being politically persecuted or religiously persecuted. They're coming here because they're economic migrants, because there's economic opportunities here. You say that you want to deport criminals who are here illegally. That would be all of them. All of them are criminals if they cross the border illegally, definitionally. If you break the law, you're a criminal. Yeah, and then I would also ask, are all people who claim asylum oppressed? Because, this oppression is a very loose term thrown around, especially by, the political left, when they never actually define the term, just like they never define what a fascist is. And it ultimately boils to thing I don't like. I'm not saying that's your claim. I'm just saying that's very common on the left. The view that the United States is a melting pot and that, we just let anybody come from anywhere. That is not true. When the United States was founded, we pretty much only let French and English people come here, and other people groups were told no. I mean, why do you think it wasn't until the late 1800s to early 1900s that we let the Irish come or the Italians come? We didn't like other cultures. They didn't share our values. They didn't share our ethics, right? So we didn't want them to come in and without assimilating. And if you have mass open borders and you just let people come in without, without keeping it in small numbers and spreading them out so that they can't congregate in small areas and basically just turn wherever they are into wherever they came from, ergo Dearborn, Michigan, right? You wouldn't be able to do that if you had a very small controlled population of people that you allowed to come into the country. You'd have to force them to assimilate. I want to limit immigration so much that I no longer have to press 1 for English, okay? That shouldn't be an option in the United States. That shouldn't be, a thing that companies do. English is the national language of the United States and the only language recognized by the U.S. government. Yeah, and also the idea of letting just immigrants come in to take care of all the cheap menial labor that nobody wants to do. The problem with this view is that what you're going to ultimately end up doing is you're going to be lowering the value of labor, because when you bring in a bunch of when you increase the labor pool, the value of labor goes down. It's just basic supply and demand, right? If you have a factory and nobody's applying, but they need workers, and one person applies, he has a bunch of weight to actually negotiate his starting price. If 30 people are applying for a job, and the job only requires 10 people, they don't have any wiggle room to argue I'm worth this much an hour, right? Because, well, the other guy will do it cheaper, and I have way more options to choose from. With that, I would like to cede the rest of my time, and I can't wait to get into the back and forth.
All right. Thank you for that opening statement, Steelborne. With that, we're going to move over to the 5-minute uninterrupted rebuttals. So we're going to hand the mic back to Lethe. And whenever you're ready, Lethe, I will start the timer up with your voice.
Right. So you're saying we can't fix immigration without stronger enforcement, if I'm understanding you correctly, and border enforcement is the key. But when 40 to 45% of the people that are here illegally are coming through visas that are being overstayed and nobody's going and checking up on this, nobody's going and finding these people, all the problems that you're talking about could be perpetuated just through that 40 to 45%. So then you look at the 50 to 55% that's left, or 55 to 50 to 60% that's left after you get through that. That's mostly people that are pretty much coming here on repeat status. These are repeatedly people that are coming in through encounters. So each encounter is counted. If it's the same person, they're still getting counted in the encounters. So when it's coming down to how they're dealing with the illegals, it's much more efficacious ultimately just to deal with it through looking for violent criminals, not just criminals in general, because you don't want to worry about people that are just going and stealing a candy bar or crossing the border or speeding. You don't want to spend your money to deport these people. They could still be very much a good factor for this country and could be bringing in more money, doing more labor, and being overall a great addition to this country. You absolutely need to focus on violent offenders or anybody that is expeditiously breaking the law and causing harm to American citizens. Those are the people we don't want in here anyway. I don't even think we want American citizens doing things like this. We just can't deport them until recently from what I'm seeing, and I'd rather it not be that way. So then you're saying a higher capacity to remove violators. Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. I would say hire more enforcement so that we can go and find the people that are overstaying their visas, to hire more judges to expedite all the cases so that we can evaluate their asylum status, evaluate what the country of origins issues are. And these are things that we can address and make the world a better place in general while making America a better America, because we are definitely a melting pot. Because I'm pretty sure you don't want to live without tacos, Italian food, Chinese food, Asian, Indian food, anything. You don't want to live without all these cultural, wonderful things. So even when you look at the UK, which is, America 0.1, they have a very diverse society. Like if you go to London, it's probably one of the most diverse places you can ever go in your life. So I don't think the diversity is the problem. I think it's perfectly fine when people can bring their cultures. We can all enjoy it, but as long as they love America and show that they're not a detriment, there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to stay. It's more cost effective that way. So you're saying borders are a part of a nation's identity. You never said get rid of the borders as a concept. There's just no reason to have a border wall or put up a whole bunch of money to try to hold up an imaginary border when literally there's tons of area that they can come through no matter what, just because it's impossible to build a wall there. There is nothing you can do. What, you want to pay armed troops to sit there 24 hours a day? There's literally no reason to do this. It's not efficacious. And then you're wondering if all asylum seekers are oppressed. We can definitely take time to evaluate that. So I would like you to address the 40 to 45% of people that are coming in through overstayed visas and how borders, or stronger border enforcement, is going to fix that problem. And I'm good.
All right. Thank you for that rebuttal, Lethe. And with that, we're going to hand the mic back over to Steelborne. Whenever you're ready for your rebuttal, Steelborne, I will start the timer up with your voice.
Yeah, okay. So let's start with looking at the UK. It doesn't exist anymore. The UK is gone. We have lost the UK, okay? London is no longer the city, the capital of England, of the British people, okay? It's basically Londonistan. There's a reason why that meme exists. That's the first ever European city in the last 100 years that has been entirely taken over, where the people who are native to that land are not even the majority of the population of that city, right? So the UK looks like a shithole. I mean, they've had 12,000 people arrested for mean words on social media. So they are, just to say, if we're looking at the UK as a shimmering example of what the greatness of diversity brings, you can keep your fucking diversity. I don't want any of that shit in my nation. All right, it's making the UK fall apart, and it's doing the same thing here. Now let's go back to the beginning of the 45% of visa overstays. Yeah, get them the fuck out. We shouldn't have let them come here to begin with. Nobody has any rights to come to the United States. Unless you are a United States citizen, you have no rights to this country. This is our nation. These are our people. We don't have an obligation to you. We have an obligation to us. Does anybody just have a right to be here? Just what? Because they want to? Because I feel sad at home, my home country, because they don't have nice of shopping malls is ultimately what it's going to boil down to, right? I don't even think we have to give illegal immigrants due process. Like I'm not talking about like what the law currently states. I'm saying on the philosophical and the moral principle of the matter, why do we have to give them due process to expedite them or to deport them? They didn't respect the law coming in. Why should we respect the law sending them out? They didn't respect it. Get them the fuck out of here. They have no business being here and no right to be here. This is our land. And the more people that you bring into a nation, right? I'm sure you've heard of the housing epidemic of, like basically my generation's fucked, right? And almost none of us are going to be able to own property. It's going to be next to impossible. a good way of actually making sure that more of us get property is to get the people who don't have the right to be here out, get illegal immigrants out, get them out of our country, deport them back to their country of origin. If you can't find their country of origin, kick them to somewhere else. I don't really care. Just get them out of here. Look, as the bartender says, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here. And also, you're saying that it would be entirely impossible to build a wall along the Rio Grande. I'd like you to actually logically demonstrate that claim, not just you just kind of keep asserting that we couldn't build a wall there. I need it to be demonstrated, right? What is the reason? We build oil rigs out in the ocean. How do we do that? Right? We build oil drills out in the ocean, but we can't build a wall along a river? What the fuck are you talking about? That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Yeah, with that, I'll just get. I want to get into the open dialogue.
All right, thank you for that rebuttal, Steelborne, and great rebuttals from both. Oh, sorry, I gotta stop the timer. Great rebuttal from both sides here. Before we get into the open hour of back and forth, let me talk to the audience real quick. If you're watching right now, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and subscribe to tonight's debaters. Their links are in the description. And we host all kind of debates here on Swords of Reasons. It could be politics, culture, ethics, internet topics, video games even, okay? Anything where reasoning and passion can collide. We do it. Okay. So if you enjoy this format, make sure you're locked in because we got lots more coming. Whenever you guys want to start up the open hour, whoever wants to start first, I will start the timer with your voice.
First of all, when you got to reset the time, I knew you couldn't get the timer going. That was your time limit, SpeakeaZy. I did that. But yeah, so I want to address this visa overstays thing that you keep saying, that only counts for that, it's about 40% of undocumented immigrants. Yeah, that's not accurate. It's 40% of the 40% of the new undocumented immigrants, essentially, basically in the new administration, I think, are visa overstays. It actually only adds up to a total of about 500,000, right? There was at very least that's been accounted for at least 11 million unauthorized and illegal immigrants that came into the United States under the Biden administration. So I don't know where you're getting somebody else can maybe make the math work, but I've never seen 500,000 account for 40% of 11 million. That makes no sense.
So this is from Statista, and they're saying visa overstays make up almost, if not more than 40% of illegal U.S. entries. And so this is going from estimated numbers from fiscal year 2023, and it has not really subsided since then. So this is just a natural issue that has to be dealt with.
Wait, so we should deport them?
I never said you can't deport them, but you don't have a workforce of people that are capable of tracking these people down and removing them. This is part of the issue.
So we need to hire more border enforcement and more immigration officers.
I don't see what that has to do with the border. Immigration, yes, I hire more immigration officers. This is about open borders.
Yeah, so what immigration does, right? So what the Border Patrol does is they enforce the policy of the United States and how we allow for people to come in through our borders. That's their job. ICE is the one who deals with the people that are already inside, but they're essentially they're ultimately all part of the same task force of I believe they're all part of the DHS. I could be wrong on that. I suck with the three-letter labels with which one's in charge of which branch, but that would be my first issue of contention is the 40% of you kept saying that the 40% of undocumented immigrants are just they're just visa overstays. That's within the very certain time period. All of the undocumented immigrants accounted for in a very short time period. 500,000 of them were visa overstays. That's where that 40% comes from. But it's not 40% of illegal immigrants in the United States are visa overstays. That's factually not the case.
You've got 860,000 crossed illegally versus 510,000 that have overstayed.
Yes, in what time period?
So this was via 2023, from 2022 to 2023 was the estimate. I don't know what the current estimate is. It could be higher at this point.
Right now, the current estimate for the total number of illegal immigrants in the United States is around 11 million. I believe that's from the DHS as well. And I can confirm that.
And I also believe that people that are here on asylum or just for overstaying a visa deserve due process to see whether or not they should be leaving. There's no reason not to give them due process, even if you feel that the misdemeanor of illegally crossing or being here illegally is enough to just get you deported for committing a crime. I don't think that meets the bar to remove their ability to have due process.
I'm actually okay with. I would actually be okay with if you came here on a visa, right, and you overstayed that visa. Well, at least you came here through a legal mechanism to begin with, and you did respect the laws, at least for entry. I wouldn't have a problem giving those people due process. But the people who just cross our border illegally without claiming asylum, even if they do claim asylum, which I think most of the asylum claims under the Biden administration were fraudulent, but if you come here illegally, as in you didn't get a visa, you just kind of came here and settled down, right? You just like moved in. Yeah, they didn't respect the law coming in. Get them the fuck out. Why do we have to give them due process? Are you a United States citizen? No, get them out. And by the way, every other country in the world enforces this, including Mexico. If I go to Mexico right now and cross the border illegally, my ass is getting deported back to the United States.
So with that being the case, the multiple people that have histories and backgrounds of being very productive when coming to this country after being here illegally, join the military, start businesses, basically make America a better place to be in, you don't think these people should have any shot?
I don't think that they make America a better place to be in. I'll explain what I mean. If somebody comes here illegally, and let's say, they come here and they open up a business and they even help a small town's local economy in some capacity, what they're doing is they're actually taking resources away from the native born citizen, right? They're taking up property as in like, the storefront and their own housing, right? And they didn't need to be here to begin with. They had no rights to be here whatsoever. And if you keep bringing in people, or if people keep coming in here illegally and taking up resources and taking up land and getting government assistance and going and getting government health care and going and getting on stamps and going, or not stamps, what is it? Food stamps, sorry. Getting on programs like this, you're going to be taking away from the domestic population. That's just how that's going to work. So they're not ultimately helping the United States become a much better, more diverse place, whatever that means. I don't even think diversity is good for the morality of a nation. If you don't have a people group to identify with, then what is it that you're identifying with? What, my flag?
Literally the people that love the country. And speaking of loving the country, I want to see.
Do you love a country if you don't respect its laws?
They do respect its laws, just not
They
coming
came here illegally. How do they respect
because
the laws
they want to be here, because they love this place and want to be here and feel it's better than where they were.
I'm sorry, is the standard of the United States that we respect the rule of law? Is that
Absolutely.
part of so if you don't respect the rule of law, you don't love the United States and its ideals.
Yeah, that's absolutely not the reason why these people are coming here. It's because usually
they're coming here for money.
Oppression.
No, they're coming for money, dude. What are you talking about?
If they're on welfare, how are they coming here for money?
No. They're coming here and they're getting welfare.
Yeah, they're not getting welfare at the rates that people are saying that they are. But if this is the case,
I'll just
getting to this point, I want to see if them crossing the border illegally or overstaying a visa is enough reason to just say, screw the Constitution, we don't need the Fifth Amendment to apply to them. And 2, why aren't we punishing the people that are hiring the illegals?
I'm fine with doing that. You're not going to hear any contention from me. If you're hiring illegal labor, then you should most definitely get punished for it, whether that's being arrested or being fined or whatever whatever's decided upon. But ultimately, I'm totally okay with punishing them.
Because rather than putting money into, again, more border enforcement, more walls, more personnel, more equipment, I'd rather be taking money from the people that are hiring the illegals and putting that into our tax system and into our government itself. And I would also like to disincentivize people to be working for substandard wages, which would in turn fix this whole issue you're talking about with wages.
Yeah, let me ask you something, because you brought up the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah.
Does the United States Constitution apply to people in Mexico?
No.
What about Canada?
No.
What about China?
A little iffy on that one.
What?
I say jokingly because, you know.
Oh, okay.
John Cena had to apologize in Chinese, so I have to make sure at this point.
Yeah, that's fair. But why doesn't the United States Constitution apply to these people?
Because they're not on American soil.
So if okay, got it. So if the United States takes over another country, like let's say we invaded and we took over, I don't know, let's say we took over Japan, right? Just for funsies.
Okay, gotcha.
Does the Constitution inherently now apply to Japan and all Japanese people?
If we count it as U.S. soil, yes, it does.
As U.S. soil, or does it have to be part of the United States? Part of the like officially.
It counts as U.S. soil. Like if you're on the consulate, like in another country, you're on U.S. soil.
Then wait, I'm trying.
So if we made Japan a territory of the
we
U.S.,
made it a territory,
soil.
sure.
Yeah, it would be U.S. soil.
Okay, so the Constitution applies there.
It would, yes.
Okay, great. So we're in agreement about how the Constitution applies to people. Got it. But if somebody were to or if somebody comes in who's not supposed to be on that land, why does the Constitution apply to them? They're not a citizen of the land. Wouldn't that be more important than just being on the soil? Right? Like if I just like broke into Canada, do you think that like the Canadian, like whatever, I don't know what they have, some kind of constitution. I don't know if I don't even think they have a constitution. I don't know. Whatever you Canadian cucks have, whatever they have, right? I don't think I'm subject to, like all of the rights that are entitled to a Canadian citizen because I'm not one.
I mean, this is up to the framers, and for some reason, the framers did not use the term citizen, but instead used the term persons in the Fifth Amendment because they knew situations like this were going to happen and they wanted people to come to this country. So that's the way they wrote the Constitution.
No,
for some
they didn't
reason,
want people
we
to
decided,
come to this country.
Then why did they, instead of putting citizen, make it persons?
Because persons is a philosophical concept.
Well, in this case, any person that is on U.S. soil is protected by the Constitution.
They weren't expecting people to be coming over here illegally when we founded the nation.
By
the way, when the United States started, right, there wasn't really much of this concept of, having strongly enforced borders because we were basically on the coast and we were moving into the mainland. But, let's say, let's just take like Maine, for example, or Virginia. Let's start with like the colony of Virginia. If a bunch of Japanese people sailed around and tried landing in Virginia and tried, totally changing the customs and the culture of whatever people group they were amongst, do you know what the fucking founding fathers have done?
Possibly get rocked? I don't know.
No. If Japanese people just tried to like assert themselves in to where people had already established land and already had established like towns and cultures and every part of that, they most likely would have just killed them in the end. If they didn't just put them on their ship and send them right back to where they're coming from and saying, nope, you don't get to just fucking come here and start trying to change our culture, right? We didn't just allow anybody to come to the United States to begin with when we first started. We really only wanted French and English immigrants. And it wasn't immigrants at the time. They were colonizers, which is different than an immigrant. A colonizer and an immigrant are not the same. Like a colonialist, what the difference is between a colonialist and an immigrant is an immigrant is somebody who's coming to an established land with established rules and an established government. A colonialist is coming to a land that doesn't have that. They're just coming to land. There might be people there, but there is no established system there. There's no established people group.
Yeah, I think my understanding of what the founding fathers wanted and your understanding of what the founding fathers wanted are very different.
The founding fathers didn't want anybody who wasn't a Christian to vote. They didn't even want most people to vote.
I was going to say most people couldn't vote unless you were a landowner, but that didn't have anything to do with immigration in itself. Immigration and voting are two different issues. So when you're looking at what was going on during that time period, you got to look at what happened throughout the history of Texas. And so
you say Texas or Texas?
Texas.
Okay.
So the relationship between Mexico and what became Texas at this point was very frayed, and there was pretty open border between the two, and that was pretty amicable. And the cultures that were there in Texas along with what was going on in Mexico. You had the Tejano people. The entire culture was a melting pot in itself of what was going on between Mexico and America. So yeah, we had beef with them. We fought wars with them. We still had borders. This wasn't an issue, but we expected that they were going to end up crossing over at some point. And we made laws and have made allowances for these things over time. And as we've gone along, we've actually depended on them for a lot of things in this country, like seasonal migration workers. Like, this is just something that has always been in America.
What's this? We depend on them.
We as Americans, like, I don't see a lot of Americans now that we've, kicked out a bunch of people, rushing down to the fields to start picking things and making sure we have the agriculture taken care of. Which is why Trump had to make an action to suspend deportation for people that are working in agriculture and hospitality.
I think there was more to it than that. I think one of the main reasons was just because it was widely unpopular with, like with people who were appealing. What is it? The not the farmers union. What's it called? The farmers lobby. The people who represented the farmers lobby basically made it very obvious that farmers didn't want them to do this because they'd have to pay more for labor.
And I don't think it would work out for them otherwise, because we are basically subsidizing farmers at this point. It's full on socialism.
Yeah, and we're also basically enslaving, Mexican immigrants who come here. I mean, you're giving them the equivalent of a slave wage, dude. If you come and pick a field of cabbage for the day and you get $2, did you really get paid honestly for the work that you did? Would you rather actually just have cheap labor? Would you rather just have cheap labor, or would you rather have Americans coming in and taking over these jobs and actually getting paid a living wage?
My problem is I don't think they will. I mean, I'd be fine if Americans wanted to do that. It's just not going to happen. We're going to suffer for it.
They would, because out of necessity. It would have to happen.
Then why has it not happened? I have not seen an upsurge.
Because we're allowing illegals to come in here and work for slave labor.
Yeah, there's fewer of them than there were before. They need workers, so why are no Americans doing it?
Because we don't have the necessity for it right now. I'm saying because we're still allowing these people to come in and take these jobs, right? There's no immediate necessity for people to take over those jobs. But if it became, it would become very apparent if we stopped allowing these people to come in and work on these fields. Very quickly, people would realize, oh shit, we need fucking people to pick corn. And there would be people who would be interested in doing those types of jobs. I mean, there are still people today who work, there are still Americans who do those kinds of jobs, right? And not only that, but when it comes to like working fields, the concept of having a bunch of laborers come in and do that, that's a very modern concept of when we started having, like large commercial agriculture. Dude, farms were almost always operated by like grandfather, father, son, brothers, or uncles and brothers. And it was the whole family would come in and help the farm. Like when the time came for the plant and the harvest and all that stuff, it was a massive family project that was, that would go into that. Or it was a massive ordeal that was undertaken through generations of acquired knowledge to be passed down to each other, right? This was not, the, John C. Farmer who owns, 100 different farms throughout the state of Iowa and makes billions, paying illegal immigrants to harvest corn for him, right? It was, John and Bill and Chuck and Steve, and each one of them had a farm in the community, right? And them and their sons and their brothers and their uncles and the whole family would come together to harvest this. And then they would take that and they would sell it to the markets. That was the way we traditionally did that. We didn't bring in Mexicans to come in and pick our agriculture. That's a very modern concept.
Well, they definitely did. Maybe not as large a rate as we do now, but it's not the mom and pop farms necessarily that are needing this work. It's the large scale industrial farms that want this work, that want these people coming in at these times. So it's still mom and pops getting hurt.
Left though is to go, we shouldn't give in to the demands of rich industrialists. Like, isn't that like the talking point of the left? Is we shouldn't give in to those people. Fuck those people. We care about the little guy in the local market.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir on that one, but at the end of the day, with the tariffs making it so that the small farmers can't get rid of their goods and the larger farms unable to get their crops picked, we're getting screwed coming and going. So both of these are issues.
How would tariffs affect farmers getting their product out in the United
States?
States?
The tariffs on soybeans has caused most of the countries that will consume those soybeans to not buy soybeans from America. there was a
know,
bumper crop. They're not able to make their profit from the work that was
I'm
done.
actually okay with the lack of soybeans because soy is fucking horrible for people. But you know, it's fucking horrible. Like, look at you. You clearly look like you work out. You know it's horrible for you. It's horrible for men. Come
No
on,
comment.
don't cope with me. Don't cope. Admit it. You know I'm right.
Hey, tofu is good here and there, but at the end of the day, if there are soybean farmers here in America that want to export soy to countries so that they're more soy and we can get rid of that in this country, by all means, get the soy out of this country, send it everywhere else so they can be of lower muscle mass.
So you want to make all the foreign countries soy boys? That's fair enough. I mean, I think that's a pretty base take. I'm okay with that. But I want to dive back into a couple other points that you made. You pointed to like,
well, we got to get to the Rio Grande. Don't forget about the Rio Grande.
I do want to get to the Rio Grande, right? But you pointed to the UK as this flourishing symbol of diversity. Dude, have you looked there recently? Does it look like a good place?
Seems pretty nice, being honest. I mean, it's
Yeah,
dark
I mean,
and
they're
dreary.
nice,
I live in
they're nice.
California, so I'm saying relatively to California, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I live in Michigan, and it's like it's basically the same here as far as weather is concerned, except it just gets way more humid here. But and you know, Michigan's experiencing the same problem of Londonistan as having, you know, Dearbornistan, right? Where the majority of the population of Dearborn is now Muslims, and they have a totally different culture, different cultural traditions, different rules. And you know, when you bring in two different cultures with two different ethics, that's gonna clash and cause massive tension, right? Like, let me ask you. Do you think there's something unique to Japanese culture that makes it distinct from other nations?
Yeah.
Okay, and if we just were like to take and put like 10 million Saudi Arabians in Tokyo, do you think there would be a massive cultural clash?
More than likely.
So why would it be a good idea to do anything like that in any nation when there's going to be a massive, you know, ethical clash between these two people groups?
I mean, you're assuming that everything that's going on culturally in Japan is a good thing. You got black companies, you got older workers not being willing to, like, the whole, there's so many things wrong in Japanese culture that could possibly be fixed by a little bit of immigration. I'm going to say, yeah, we should probably do something like that.
So you want Japan to no longer be Japanese?
It'll still be Japanese.
How would
All
it
the
be
stuff
Japanese?
will still be there.
How would it be? So it's Japanese
The
because of the
primary
buildings?
language, the primary language will still be Japanese. All the monuments.
You agree
all
that
the
Japan is a very
history.
ethnocentric country, right?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, so do you think that the people's ethnic identity is important to them in Japan?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no.
I would say in most cases in Japan. Right? Like how well looked upon is it by your family if, let's say, you know, a Japanese guy, let's say he decides he's going to marry, like, you know, I've actually seen quite a few of these cases like this. Okay, let's say a Japanese girl decides she's going to marry an American Marine who came over and was stationed in Okinawa, right? How well do you think that goes with the family?
Depending, not great.
Usually
if it's a
not
white
great.
guy, if it's a white guy, it works out amazingly usually.
It depends on. It usually depends on which part of Japan you're into, because that doesn't also make a massive difference.
Exactly the point. There are certain areas in Japan where, like, if you're not straight up pure blood Japanese, you probably can't go there. If you look even slightly mixed, the people in the area, especially their mafia, is going to say, hey, you don't belong here, and make it very difficult for you to stay there. So even if you had an influx in immigration there, there's going to be areas where just foreigners aren't going to be allowed to go.
Yeah. So, but back to the UK, because I don't want to draw away from this point. Dude,
By all
the UK knife stats or knife crime stats are up like 400%. I mean, 12,000 people alone have been arrested for speech crimes in the last year. Because and a lot of them were Islamophobia, right? You just you say something like, I don't really like the religion of Islam, and you get arrested for it over there.
Why are we having problems with Abrahamics all of a sudden? I thought we loved the Abrahamics.
No. The Abrahamic. I reject the concept of an Abrahamic religion. Also, I've never heard anybody pronounce it Abrahamics. But no, I have massive issues with Islam. But anyways, most of those are theologically based. But
I'm sure.
Do you think that the cultures of places like Pakistan and people like places like Saudi Arabia, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Iran, Iraq, that these cultures are going to have massively different cultural norms, moral systems, ethics than the people of England. Traditionally.
Initially, but over time they tend to assimilate pretty well.
Are they?
Yeah, even here, when most of the people from the Middle East I know, like once it's been one generation, they're pretty much just like the rest of us.
Yeah, until you get enough of them in a small area, and then you get the 5 a.m. calls to prayer every day. But by the way, in England, this is hilarious to me. There's nothing wrong with the 5 a.m. calls to prayer for Muslims, but if a Christian prays in public in their head, they can get arrested for that. Such a great symbol of diversity there.
Wait, what is this? I've never heard this before.
Mm-hmm.
Fill me in. I actually.
Yeah, there's been multiple cases of people in the UK who've been arrested for prayer, like Christians who've been arrested for public prayer. And by the way, what I mean by public prayer is this: they got arrested for that.
I don't believe that's actually true, but okay, I'll take your word for it. I'll grant that for now. That's crazy. If you nodded off in public, you might get arrested because they thought you were praying.
Dude, it's not a joke. Literally, there are 12,000 people in prisons right now for social media posts in England, in the rest of the UK.
I mean, they don't have the same constitution or laws that we do.
Which, by the way, is higher than Russia and China.
I mean, China and Russia basically kill off their Muslims, so like I'm not.
No, not talking about Muslims. I'm talking about arresting people for speech. The UK has China and Russia beat right now. The UK, which is supposed to be like a European symbol of freedom.
Are we comparing the humanitarian rights violations of Russia and China over the UK?
No, what I'm comparing is this. You gotta realize that all these ideas are going to be ultimately going to be tied together, right? So this concept of open border, we're a global people group, all this stuff. That's going to be tied to other positions, and it's going to lead to other entailments that people don't like. A lot of people don't like, right? So the concept of the global citizen is a farce and it's ridiculous. You have nothing in common with an Islamic fundamentalist or the Khmer warriors of Papua New Guinea. You have nothing in common with them culturally. Do we want to bring those people into our nation just because they say they feel oppressed? Is that our obligation to do that?
I mean, the first one I'm going to say there's definitely some things that are held in common. For the second one, not so much. That's as a whole another animal. But when it comes down to Islamic fundamentalists, like we definitely have a lot of things in common, like family, strong morals. Like there are a lot of things that I could find overlap in ideals.
Well, no, what the overlap there is in the idea of having in the fact that they claim to have a theistic religion, right? I'll grant you that overlap, that they have a theistic religion. Most of the prescriptions that they have for society are going to be entirely different from ours.
I don't see where they're too much different, but allowing for that, the reason why you have...
Do Christians advocate for stoning women for not wearing burqas?
I mean, technically they should if they're going by the book, but I'm not.
No, they shouldn't if they're going by the Bible. No, there's nowhere in the Bible where it says women have to wear burqas.
It says women cover your hair lest you tempt the angels.
In church.
It doesn't say anything about in church.
It does say in church. Yes, Paul writing to Timothy in church.
But beyond that, the reason why you have an influx in Muslim population in the UK mostly comes from the things that we did post 9/11. So all these people ended up there because of the actions of the Western world.
Okay, wait. So every time a people group like comes in and let's say they declare war on a terror cell, right? They now have an obligation to bring those people to your nation.
Asylum seeking is a Western value. We definitely take in refugees from countries where people are being oppressed.
Are we obligated to?
No, it's just a good moral thing to do.
Why is it a good moral thing to do?
Because after we witnessed the massive amount of deaths from us not doing something, we didn't want that on our conscience in the future.
Yes,
so we made laws to do so.
So it's a good moral thing to do because otherwise we feel bad?
I mean, apparently.
You think that's a good argument? We have to bring in all of the beaners, and they're not beaners. What's the name? What's the name I'm looking for?
You tell me.
I used to know. I know a lot of Hispanic people. There's a name. We have to bring in all the Belditos and the Juans. All of these people because otherwise, what? We feel bad if we don't.
I mean, mostly when you look at what happens globally, economically, structurally, all the way around, if you don't take in asylum seekers, you get negative outcomes.
No,
So
we don't. You don't have to take in asylum seekers just because they're claiming asylum. You don't have to do that. We have no obligation to any other people group in the world except for ours. Like, shouldn't the function of the United States government be putting United States citizens first?
wait a minute. So you're going to say destabilizing entire regions all across the planet because we don't want to deal with
Well, no, I'm
bringing
more
a
of an
few people
isolationist.
in?
I'm not saying we should. I don't think we should also be involved in most foreign wars.
Yeah, and that's
So-
how you end up with a 9/11. Like literally, it's us not taking care of business gets us situations like terror cells building up, wars,
Well, if we weren't involved,
destabilization.
hold on. If we didn't get involved in other countries' affairs, why would the terror cells feel? What do you think the terror cells like? What do you think their reason is just because they hate the Star Spangled Banner?
No, it's like all of the West. Even when Europe does something, we are inculcated in what happened.
Yeah. What do we have to get involved in every single foreign affair?
I would hope not, but I think if you're going to do it right, and America tends to do it right.
I don't even think we do it right. I think we drag it out way too much when we can go in there. Dude, we could destroy literally all of the Middle East in 5 minutes if we really wanted to.
If that was the goal is never to destroy all the Middle East, my dude.
Well, we wouldn't have to deal with them anymore.
Oh my goodness. No, there are certain things like there are resources, cultures, travel, like all these different things we make money from. We have businesses out there. It's not like we don't have any
Okay, so we
stake.
have to bring in refugees. Got it. We have to bring in, Mahmoud and, the rest of the rock lickers because otherwise our businesses in the desert aren't going to do as well. If that's your argument, sir, I have some waterfront property to sell to you in Colorado.
I'm going to say American interest takes first hand over anything that goes on. As much as American interests that you consider aren't those interests, they actually are. You just wouldn't want to have to consider how much so.
I'm sorry. What obligation does the United States have to getting involved in the foreign wars? Why is that
It
our
depends
obligation?
on it depends on what the foreign war is. So like with Ukraine, it's literally because we had a hand in their denuclearization. So we made an agreement with them to make sure they have arms and an ability to defend themselves should Russia want to come in. So we are involved in a foreign war because we had a hand in the negotiations that went on with it.
Yeah, and why
So-
couldn't we just hands off and go, you know what? You guys do what you want. You're on your own. That's not our concern anymore. It's not our problem. I'm like, do you know how many billions we sent to Ukraine?
Okay, so
Would that be better spent on lowering our... Dude, the United States is $38 trillion in debt. Why are we giving money to any foreign nation? Like, let me ask you, if your buddy was like $100,000 in debt, and he's like, hey, come on, I'm taking you to Vegas, it's all on me. You're going to be like, okay. Or you're like, what the fuck's wrong with you, dude? You have bigger problems here. Why are you going to Vegas? You're not being responsible with your obligations that you already have.
So you don't think we make money off of what's going on in Ukraine? Which
No,
goes
I don't
toward
think
our
we're making
debt?
money off what's happening in Ukraine, dude.
Yeah, we definitely make a lot of money. We're basically selling off our surplus to them. They have to pay us back, and they have to pay us for the arms that we're sending. This isn't a handout.
We've literally given them you think Ukraine's... Unless other countries get involved, there's no way Ukraine wins the war against Russia. I hope you realize that, right?
Them winning the war is not the point. Ultimately,
Well, then how can they pay us back if they don't win?
Because they're not going to lose. It's not going to be Russian
Why wouldn't they
territory.
Why couldn't they? If other nations didn't get involved, what would stop Russia from actually just coming in and taking it?
Oh, probably nothing. But that's not going to be the case. Other countries are going to get involved. So if America
Yes,
decides to take
because
hands
people
off,
you were saying we got to do something about it. We got to involve ourselves in this foreign conflict that has nothing to do with us. It's literally an ocean away.
and it affects you, like you don't understand that things oceans away affect you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't really like. Do you think that I'm not going to be able to get my what are they called? What the fuck are they called? Little potato, like fried potato things.
French
I'm totally,
fries,
no, not French fries.
hash browns,
No, it's not a Western concept.
latkes. I'm just naming fried potato items. Either way, if you look up and America decides to be isolationist, which hasn't worked out for any country as far as I understand, like China didn't work out for them, definitely didn't work out for Russia. Being isolationist just means every other country that's working globally takes up all the resources you're not taking, and by the time you stop being isolationist, you're so far behind the game that you don't even know where to look up. Like, if we were to allow Russia and China to take over Taiwan, to take over Ukraine, and all these other areas, the resources that they're going to amass is going to be staggering to us. So we as a world power are affected by the conflicts that happen other places in the world.
Yeah, I'm not saying that we're not entirely affected, right? But ultimately, the question is, does the United States have a government, or the United States government have a higher obligation to its citizenry and taking care of them over those of a foreign nation?
So I would say making sure that the foreign nation is stable will keep more people in the nation they're in rather than seeking asylum in America.
We don't
So
have to grant them
ultimately-
asylum in America. You know what we can do? We can say no. We're America. We can do that.
So this is what I'm saying. So already you wanted to go against the Fifth Amendment. So Constitution out the window. Us keeping our word on the agreements that we make with other countries out the window.
The Constitution doesn't apply to people who aren't citizens of the United States.
It absolutely does, and it's literally outlined in the language.
I'm sorry. Do
of the
people that are not
Constitution.
citizens of the United States have the freedom of speech?
No.
Oh, so then
If-
the Constitution doesn't apply. How about the right to bear arms?
No, what I was speaking to when I'm saying you're denying the Constitution, I'm saying the people are here illegally, have the access to due process, which is the Fifth Amendment. So if they're here, they get due process.
I'm sorry. They didn't respect our laws coming in. Why do we have to respect the law sending them out when we can just kick them out?
It's the law we made. This is how we founded the law.
Yes. Do you think the founders had any idea that there was going to be, once the United States became an established nation, that there was going to be, 11 million illegal immigrants coming in from our southern border?
I believe they thought they were building a great nation that was going to stand the test of time. And much like Rome and other places, there was a great amount of immigration and they expected this. I don't think it was outside of their purview.
Dude, it was not. It was most definitely outside of their purview, and I can explain how it was outside of their purview. Because Mexico was not a westernized nation at the time of our founding. Mexico was still wearing the fucking, like, the jungle clothes at the time of our founding. Right? The Spaniards had not come in and brought, in mass brought Catholicism to it and brought Western values to it at that time. That was not a thing. Like, most of Mexico was still incredibly, native, I guess the better word I'm looking for here.
So the founding fathers favored the Romans more than the Greeks when they formed their views on naturalization. And most of the representatives at the convention opposed the Morris Amendment of making it a 14-year citizenship before somebody could serve as a senator, because it goes against the values that they had. So discouraging meritorious aliens from immigrating to the country was a negative to the founding fathers. Hamilton argued that the advantage of encouraging foreigners was obvious and admitted, asserting that the persons in Europe of moderate fortunes will be fond of coming here, where they will be on a level with first citizens. So
yes, of Europe, they didn't have problems with European people coming here because all of Europe was Christian at this point. They had a shared ethic. Most of Europe was Catholic, right? Now, it's true that the Protestants who founded the nation didn't share all of the same ethics, but the universals between Protestants and Catholics they have the same universal claims, especially on morals and ethics, right? So, like, both a Catholic and a Protestant would agree you shouldn't kill people or you shouldn't diddle kids, right? The basic morals that come with Christianity, the Protestants held on to those that were formed by the Orthodox and Catholic Church, like. It wasn't the same, right? They weren't talking about people from Japan, right? That was an entirely different people group. That was not even in their thought process.
I don't want to hit a sore spot, but you're talking about morals, the Catholic Church, and diddling children. Are you sure?
Only if we can talk about secular institutions like public schools.
I'm going to say it's a problem with that too.
Yeah, it's 100 times worse than the Catholic Church.
I'm just saying that these morals that you're speaking of are not.
But I would never be so
exclusive.
stupid as to claim that, because it's a church, that's what leads to the people diddling children. The far better, the thing that would make the most sense is that predators go where the children are. Predators go where they have easy access to children.
I'm gonna say it's power in general, but I mean,
I don't think it's just power, because like, what good is being the general manager of a Walmart compared to being a public school teacher if your goal is to diddle kids?
I'm going to say a lot of people that are in those positions also abuse their power. And
are you going to have more access to children, which are your prey, if you're a public school teacher or a priest, or if you're the supervisor of a Ford plant?
Oh no, absolutely the first.
That's why I would never. Yeah, that's why I'd never say that it's because it's a church that it leads to that. It's because it's just easy access to children. But you got to remember, dude, like the French and the English and the Scottish and the Irish, even the Italians for the most part. They all had a very common ethic that they shared, and they based their views around. This did, like, literally, like John Locke even said that the United States is founded for a moral people group. Under any other people group, it cannot survive. The founding fathers didn't want people who weren't Christians to be able to vote. Most times didn't want people who weren't Christians to be able to come here. We had very, very limited immigrations from the Barbary pirates. That there were some of them that were allowed to come, like very, very few. And very quickly we fucking kicked them out because they were enslaving white people and taking them over, and we went and fucking killed them all.
So when you're looking at the examples you're giving,
the United States government used to pay privateers to go and kill Barbary pirates, and like literally go for pirate hunting. I mean, it's kind of fucking cool. I mean, like, could you imagine if we did that now?
We are kind of doing that now.
No, I'm saying privateering.
Oh, yeah, that'd be interesting. American sanctioned privateering would be a great thing to do, because a lot of Americans would probably be more interested in that than agriculture at this point. But getting to your example of the Italian people, the Irish people, and the shared ethic, initially when America was founded, they weren't really big fans of the Irish and the Italians either. And they weren't really put under the umbrella. So like over time, these groups are also accepted once we understand, oh, they can be cohesive, they can assimilate into our way of life in America. And this went all the way up until when John F. Kennedy was being elected, when people were saying, oh, but he's Catholic, like maybe this is a bad idea. Like these things have been
That's because the United States was founded by Protestants. That I agree with. But every state at the founding of the United States had their own state religion?
Not every.
No, like all 13 of them had an official state religion. The what's that? I can't remember the official. It's like the no, I think it was 9 out of the 13 of actually, not every one of them. I think you're right. I think it was 9 out of the 13.
Yeah, it was some. It wasn't entire. It wasn't the entire.
Well, that'd be most, but they had shared ethics, but because they couldn't decide on a denomination, right? It was never like the concept of, well, we can't really decide which one's right. It's like, no, we all knew at the all the founding fathers knew that it was Christian ethics was the superior ethic to any other. And we were okay with importing people or having people with those same ethics come here. But we didn't want Muslims moving in the United States or Hindus moving to the United States. They didn't share our ethics. They didn't share our virtues. Right? Why do you think there was all that conflict between the Native Americans and the Westerners who came here? Because they didn't share the same ethics.
I would say mostly it's because they wanted their land and wanted to establish what they wanted to establish without having to worry about them and constantly move them all over the place whenever they got the opportunity to do so. But
no, it's true they wanted their land too, but they also looked at these people, because there's been this famous lie told of the noble savage that they were all just really really good pipe smoking nice guys, and these mean Westerners came in and just killed them. And it was like no, they were fucking brutal people. The Native Americans were brutal fucking warriors. All right.
In a lot of cases, like I'm not going to say that all of them weren't against people coming in and taking over areas that they hunted and had family in. Like, of course, they're going to fight against that. But a lot of them were also very amicable to Americans coming in, settling down, and trying to be a part of the same cultures that they were. And you have the stories of even like when Utah was being taken over, the Mormon Church was hiring like native hitmen to go in and wipe out different settlements so that they could take over more land. So apparently,
I didn't know that, but that's actually kind of that is kind of slightly based on the Mormons. I'll grant them that. But you keep appealing, you did keep appealing to the UK multiple times. I think we've kind of, beaten that point to death at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't have taken over India, and then you wouldn't have a big Pakistani population in there. It's kind of like chickens come home to roost eventually, and then you got to let them come home.
I'm sorry. Why do they have? Why? So, do we have an obligation? If let's just say we went in and we destroyed the Chinese government, right? And we destroyed the Chinese military. Do we now have an obligation to allow people from China to seek asylum in the United States, or should they try and rebuild their own nation?
We will accept asylum seekers if there
Should we accept the asylum seekers?
I absolutely believe we should.
So, even though they don't share our ethics or anything, or they don't even share our culture, our concepts of morality, we should make sure to bring those people here. Let me ask something. What do you think is going to happen if your highest virtue is liberty, man, right? And you bring in mass amounts of people who don't share that ethic of liberty? How well do you think it's going to go long term? Right? Let me ask something. I'm going to assume that, you're some kind of a liberal, right? So I'm assuming you support things like women's rights to vote.
Yeah.
Do Muslims support women's rights to vote?
Not all of them, no.
Would you say the majority of them don't?
And
when I say I'm making a distinction between Muslim
globally,
and I'm saying
globally,
Muslim,
I'd say
not
probably
Iranian, right? Because Muslim, if you actually follow the religion, no, Muslim women cannot vote in their system.
I'd say globally, probably not.
Yeah, so most Muslims don't want women to vote. So if you literally keep bringing in Muslims in the United States, people who don't share your ethics, and they outbreed you because they do, long term, guess what happens to women's liberation? Bye. It's gonna go from, it's gonna turn into Abdul, get the rocks and grab the burqa.
Yeah, I don't see in any way if a large population of Muslims came to America, they were going to be able to amend our Constitution. It's just not.
I'm sorry. Is it possible to amend the Constitution?
It is possible. Yes.
Do Muslims have more children than secularists or Christians, even?
Yeah.
So if United States citizens birth rate down, Muslims birth rate up, do you see the math here of how this is going to go? If it stays at this rate?
So are we talking on a 1,000-year line? What are we talking about here?
No, a couple of generations.
Yeah, absolutely not in a couple generations. So when you're looking at going back to the UK, 59% white still, then you have the other populations, large Muslim population moved in. How many of their laws have changed?
I'm sorry, which place did you say?
UK.
Lots of UK laws have changed.
Yeah, I can't think of a single UK law that has changed.
Christians can't pray in public.
That's not a law on the books.
Yes, it is a law on the books. You'll be arrested for it.
Yeah, I don't believe that to be true. I don't think there was a law passed that said Christians can't pray in the street. There's no amendment to anything in their constitution there in the UK.
They considered it hate speech.
So that would just be an overstepping of existing laws.
No, they just reclassified. They just redefined what hate speech is. If I recall correctly, that was the way they went about doing that one. I could be off on that, but they did in fact make it illegal.
Because I believe they have a Human Rights Act in the UK that allows for freedom of expression of religion.
Tell that to the people who are in prison for praying in public. There's been multiple national stories, even in the United States, on this because of it.
Yeah, this is something I'm just now hearing about right now, so I have nothing to refute what you're saying. I just don't know of any actual law that's on the books. You can say it's hate speech, but that just becomes a static definition that they're choosing to enforce.
Trying to define hate speech is ultimately futile. But if let's just say take a look at London, where it's no longer it's now a majority Muslim city, right? You take this and you just keep applying this outward into the greater population of England, and you just keep going. And you start with these epicenters, right? Because English people aren't having anywhere near as many children as they used to. They're actually having less than they're below replacement rate children. If you keep bringing other cultures in who don't share your ethics, right? They have different ethics. Like Abdul, get the rock, right? And you keep bringing these people in. Ultimately, you're just replacing the native population. So if what is how is that better?
Again, the slippery slope that you're talking about, I don't see at any
It's
point.
not a
And I wish you
slippery
could
slope.
demonstrate to me in what way they'd be allowed to incite Sharia law and have public stonings.
I'm sorry. Is the UK a democracy?
It's a monarchy. Still a democracy, but it's a monarchy.
Yes, people in the UK vote.
Yeah.
If the majority of the people in the UK are appealing to Muslim ethics, can they democratically institute Sharia law?
They can try. It won't work. I don't see
Why
it
wouldn't it
happening.
work? I wouldn't.
That's what I'm saying. Can you demonstrate
your
to me?
incredulity is not an argument. You're not even answering the questions. It's like, can they, if the majority of the UK becomes fundamental or becomes very devout Muslims, can they? I'm not asking if they will. I'm not even asking that. I'm saying, can they institute Sharia law?
Technically, anything's possible. It's just not
Yes.
probable.
Yeah. Okay. Look, dude, you need to compare the rates of or the ethnicities of London from like 20 years ago to today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's 59% white still. Then you have a black demographic. So you have Africans, you have Indians, so you have another religion in that country as well. Pakistani. There's a lot of Chinese people out there. Like, it's extremely diverse in London. It's not just Muslims.
Yeah, and no, it's not 59% white. It's 36% white.
Where are you getting this number? Because the number I'm getting is 59%.
Trying to pull up the source for you here. Now this is true. This is coming from Wikipedia. Let me find a better source than that. Because I hate using Wikipedia as a source.
No, I feel you.
And I just want to, real quick, while you're doing that, just to like kind of step in as the audience for a second, just to clarify for everyone. So one side is saying here that security comes from controlling who enters, and the other side is saying it's controlling how it's processed, rather, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, that's definitely fair. Like,
okay.
Yeah, let me ask something. If you have a house, right, and you have somehow subjectively given a criterion for who is allowed to enter. Let's say you have a guest list. Let's say you have a guest list in your house, right? And these people on the guest list, these are the people that are allowed to come in, right? We're gonna welcome them in. Does that guest list do fucking anything to keep the robbers out at night, or does the locks and the security guard do that?
the locks and the security guard would make sure you don't get victimized. Yes.
Yes. So how would we prevent people from coming in the United States if
you allowed people to have day passes into your house to where they just said, hey, I'm not going to leave after the day, and nobody did anything about it?
Yeah, what should we do with those people?
What do your locks and security do about that?
That's when you use enforcement and you appeal to people with more force, like police, and they come in and they remove that person, or you can remove that person yourself. You have no obligation to let them stay because they just refuse to leave.
Right. So if we're talking about in a country where there's a workforce, so like if it was the case that all of a sudden this person that was overstaying their welcome in your home was cleaning up everything while you were gone, you barely
yeah,
even
if I break
noticed
into
they
your
were
house
there.
and do the dishes, I should be allowed to stay in your house.
I mean, maybe, depends.
Am I not a security threat to you at that point? You have no idea who I am.
And that's where the vetting comes in. So if we are able to find these
we
people,
make sure they're extra nice as they come in illegally and they rob the United States citizens of our welfare programs, right? Because like it ultimately, yeah, it is like they receive massive benefits, especially in healthcare. We do have some of the highest quality healthcare. I'm not saying the cheapest, some of the highest quality healthcare anywhere in the world. Now, and there's literally nowhere in the United States where if you go into an emergency room, they can actually deny treating you. They're just not allowed to. They have to treat you.
So would that not be more?
You also don't have to give hospitals your information at all. You don't have to give them any information.
And is that not a good reason to make sure that all of these people are documented?
No, it's a good reason to say, get them the fuck out of here. They don't deserve to be here.
So if a person is putting in more into the system than they're taking out,
they're not putting more into the system than they're taking out.
They absolutely are putting more into the system than they're taking out.
They're not putting more into the system than they're taking out.
So you don't believe that illegal immigrants are bringing more money into the system as well as tax revenue that they are not receiving any benefit for. They're not putting money into Social Security. They're not doing any of these things.
I'm sorry. Who do they pay taxes to?
Their employers end up taking that money that goes from payroll tax and everything else as being
You know the
paid
point
out.
of getting of hiring illegal immigrants so that you can pay them cheaply under the table?
Yeah, they still have to put something in documentation because the money
Under the
has to
table
be
means you
seen.
didn't put anything in documentation. It was kind of like a wink, wink, nod, nod situation.
Yeah, I don't know if you understand how to illegally hire people on the books, because there's a certain amount of money that's in your corporate accounts. All these things are going to be audited and taken account of. Like, this is just something that's going to happen. There's going to be a payroll tax. There's going to be money that goes out. Then also, once these people get the
Not
money,
if you hire them as a subcontractor, you don't.
they put money into the economy by purchasing goods, other things like that.
Yes, and then they also take massive amounts of money out of the tax toll when they go into a hospital and go cough cough. I'm coughing up blood. I've got something wrong with me because they couldn't afford to get medical care back in their country because their country's a shithole, right? And they come and they or it's communist, and they go cough cough. We have to treat them by law. We have to treat them. The hospital's not allowed to deny you treatment if you need it, right? And they're not required to give the hospital any information. So there's no way to actually trace that bill back to them. So where does that bill come from? Who pays that bill?
I mean, ultimately, the taxpayer is going to have to pay the bill, which is why they should have a Social Security or ITIN number.
So we just make them a citizen, and then you're good. Just make the people who broke the law to come into the country legal citizens. That's just a great idea.
You don't have to make them a citizen. You just have to document them. They can work their way towards citizenship. There are people that have been in the country 10, 15 years.
Yes, and they violated the laws to get here. Get them out. I'm sorry. You are aware of the fact that my generation is basically not going to be able to own property, right? If we continue.
And that's literally about corporations. Like, the amount of houses that are owned by corporations.
It's simple supply and demand. If there's more more vacant houses and less people who want them, then the value of the houses goes down, right? Because we're importing or we're letting more people come in than we have the ability to even build for, right? We're bringing in something to the tune of, like, I think, what is it, like 1 million legal immigrants a year?
Mm-hmm.
On top of the 11 million who came in illegally under Biden. So minimum, we have 12 million immigrants in the United States right now.
So what you're telling me is the people that are working under the table for $2 an hour are buying up all the houses from Americans, and we won't be able to have houses because of them. When
a bunch of them come in,
4 families of them living in maybe one house that they're renting.
That could be the way, but the other thing that they do is they also take they take a good section of their money and they send it back to Mexico, basically tax free.
More U.S. dollars in circulation globally.
No. They convert it, obviously. Like, they're not just sending wads of cash home. They get it converted.
Yeah, I don't think that's a huge issue when you look at things. Like, they're still spending money here in America. They're still putting into the Social Security.
Okay.
Like, I would say, like...
Can you contend with my GDP argument?
What was your argument again on GDP?
Yeah, so a lot of people fundamentally understand how the GDP actually works. GDP just means money has changed hands. Like, if you actually break it down, so, like, okay, if I look at you, we're like, let's say you and I are walking down the woods, and I look and I see a pile of bear shit, and I go, I'll give you $100 to eat that. And you go, okay, and then you eat it, and I give you $100, and then we walk another 20 yards, and there's another pile of bear shit, and you go, I'll give you $100 if you eat that. And I go, okay, the GDP has now gone up $200, and all we've done is eaten shit.
Or nobody could eat the shit, nobody could get money, and the GDP stays right where it's at. So
yes, but so this whole appeal of graph go up is just a really stupid argument ultimately, because the GDP going up, is that necessarily a good thing?
Yeah, more money in circulation, more money going into the economy is definitely a good thing.
No.
Which is why I just explained to you how
the GDP works. Every time money changes hands, it could be for anything. That makes the GDP go up. Does us eating bear shit, is that good for the country?
Yeah, it's a false dichotomy.
It's not a false dichotomy. I'm not saying it's one or the other. I'm saying, is it the case that the GDP going up is necessarily a good thing?
Yes, the GDP of the country going up is a net good thing.
No, not net good. Necessarily.
It is
That's what I'm saying.
necessarily good. Lower GDP bad, higher GDP good.
Okay, got it. So if we both eat shit and all we've done is just exchange the same $100, that's good. Because the
it's
GDP
not,
goes up.
so that's not the only thing. Like, that's not going to factor into the overall GDP. You're looking at overall.
Yeah, I know. If I go buy a
consumption.
car, the GDP has gone up $40,000. I agree with that. But if I
Right.
also offer you $100 to eat shit, and you offer me the same $100 to eat shit 2 minutes later, the GDP has gone up $200, and we've both eaten shit, and nothing's actually happened.
Right. So
that's why I'm asking: does GDP go up necessarily mean good?
Yeah, it's still good. Even if it's $200 up, it's still good.
All that's happened is we've eaten shit, dude. What do you mean it's still good?
Hey, we're usually eating shit at the bottom no matter what you do. Our influence on the GDP is pretty minimal, but on a whole, when there's more people contributing to the GDP and spending money in the economy, increasing government spending, putting more money into taxes.
Is our GDP higher
good.
now than it was in, let's say, like 1917 or 1915?
Yeah, absolutely.
Our GDP is better now?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think people's living standards are better? When,
Absolutely.
you could raise a family on a single income, and, dad goes to work, mom can stay at home, and, the family can get a new car every couple of years, and they get all the newest appliances when they come out, and the house is paid off very, very relatively quickly, right? Everybody gets their nicest, finest clothes for Sunday on church, to go to church on Sunday, and, they're not actually freaking out to make sure that they can pay their rent and afford spaghetti that week. Do you really think that what we have now is better than then?
I mean, depending on what you value, I'm going to say it's better not to have lead paint on the walls. It's better to have access to very good healthcare.
Dude, that's not the same thing as ultimately saying that just because GDP go up mean good thing necessarily. GDP up higher than it used to. Let's just say the 70s. Is it better than it was in the 70s?
Our living standards are better than in the 70s as well.
Could most people afford to buy a house?
Yeah, most people could afford to buy a house.
Yeah. Do you know what that's not even the case anymore?
Sorry, I didn't know that I had the volume on there. Sorry, my bad.
I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it scared me for a second. I was like, whoa, what the hell just happened? So that does wrap up the hour of open floor. I do see that the conversation was still a little hot there. And what I do when the conversation's still a little hot at the end, I do ask if you would both be open and want another 30 minutes of open floor before we get to the Q&A and closing statements.
I'm cool with it. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, I'm down.
You guys want another 30 minutes? Okay, no problem. Then we'll back up the clock here to 30 minutes and you guys can continue going.
Yeah. So overall stagnant wages is the problem. Like literally.
Yeah, when you okay, let me ask you something. You understand the basics of supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have more supply of something, demand for it goes down. So if we have more people as laborers coming in, then the demand for labor is going to do what?
Decrease or stay the same?
It's going to decrease. If supply goes up, demand goes down. Yeah, so how is it? Yeah, so you want to talk about stagnating wages? How is bringing people in to the tune of at least 1 million a year, right? The legal immigrants, we're bringing in 1 million people a year. How is that going to be good? If you're increasing the supply of labor, you're going to be necessarily decreasing the demand for it, right? And these kids who come in, like a lot, and most of the people that we bring in, right, for like H-1Bs and stuff like that, most of these people have like tech degrees and stuff like that. And I'm sure that they do great for Silicon Valley, but who is more deserving of a job in American tech? Baljit from India, who has his tech degree from there, or Carl, the guy who got his degree at UCLA and in tech. Like who in America should get that job?
Whoever's most qualified, honestly. And usually the H-1Bs tend to be pretty well qualified, but it's also the issue that they can make contracts with people with H-1Bs in order to lock them into contracts and pay them less while producing a similar quality of work, which is a problem with immigration.
Well, I'm sure. I'll just grant that they give them a similar quality of work, but if they're, basically what you're saying is with this contract, they're kind of like, it's more or less indentured servitude because they're not getting paid what they should be paid to do the work.
And they don't have the freedom to go to another job because they've signed a contract. So they're pretty
And
much
that's a good
locked
system.
in. No, I don't like the immigration system as it is, and I think it needs to be reformed and become more robust.
So wait, so bringing more people in.
No, I didn't say bringing more people in. I just said the immigration system.
You said
needs
you
to
want an
be-
open border. How is that not bringing more people in?
Because I don't think all those people will be able to stay, and I don't think the same amount of people will be trying to get in. If the
Wait.
enforcement,
Let me ask you something. If
Go
we
ahead.
outlaw behavior, does the quantity of that behavior necessarily go up or go down?
you would think it would go up.
If we outlaw the behavior,
Oh, sorry, if we outlawed a behavior, no, it would go down.
yeah, the amount of that behavior will go down. How about if we legalize something? Like, do you think? Let me ask you something. So you would agree with me that marijuana in most states is recreationally legal in most states.
Yes.
Do you think there are more people today who smoke pot than would have if marijuana was still illegal?
Probably more.
Yeah, there's more. That makes sense. That follows. So if we made crossing the border legal, do you think the number of people who are going to be coming over that open border is going to go up or down just based on these trends that we're seeing?
It's going to go up initially.
Why what do you mean initially?
Because the people that are going to come here that are actually going to take the time and put in the energy to get here are going to come here. And for whatever reason, if they have like crime in their background or they don't work or they don't contribute, they're going to get removed from the country. That's just going to happen.
So I don't even understand. What is the distinction that what is your distinction here? If you still agree that we should make people wait, they shouldn't just get instant citizenship. How is the system you're offering even any different than the status quo?
I'm saying put less money into border enforcement because it's not effective and it's wasting money.
It's not effective.
Allow for people.
Hold on, it's not effective.
Not as effective as it should be now.
I'm sorry. Can you tell me what was the rate in which illegal crossings of the border dropped when Trump took office and started enforcing the border?
The border was being enforced to begin with.
No, it wasn't. Just take a guess at how many illegal or how much crossings of the border, southern border, went down. Just take a guess. Don't you don't got to Google it. You can Google it if you want.
30%? No, I'll say 30%.
95%.
95%.
Immigration through the southern border dropped by 95% when Trump went into office. And all he did, by the way, was just enact the current law that we have. The problem was the Biden administration just wasn't really enforcing it. They were just trying.
What did he do that made people not come to the border?
He brought back our catch and release program, or he brought back not catch and release, but he brought back the stay in Mexico program. So what we used to do is if somebody was coming over to the United States from Mexico and they were seeking asylum, we used to have a wait in Mexico policy where it's like we had essentially like waiting centers inside of Mexico, so not in the United States, where they had to wait for their asylum to get cleared. He brought back that, and what was happening under the Biden was the catch and release, which was, okay, we catch them, got it. We mark down their name, let them go. That was one massive aspect that he did. The other one was he started deporting people, a lot of people. That right in and of there, or that, and by the way, when you get deported from the United States for illegally crossing, most of the time you're banned for life.
Okay, so the Remain in Mexico policy is not back in effect. It was only allowed to be in effect due to the public health emergency that was going on during his administration and eventually was phased out due to that being an emergency power that was being used. The catch and release shows that, hey, we had encounters at the border. Usually it was the same encounters over and over and over again. So
why would we have the same encounters over and over again?
Because you put them back in Mexico, they come back and try to cross the border.
That's not catch and release.
That is literally catch and release.
That's not the way we were doing catch and release.
Encountering them at the border, you give them a court date, you put a monitoring system on them, and you send them on their way. If they show up for the court date, cool. If they don't show up for the court date, you stay out. It's kind of how it works.
No. If they don't show up for the court date, we don't know where the fuck they are. By the way, if you try and do a program like that where it's like we catch, we encounter somebody at the border, and we go, okay, here's your court date in 4 fucking years, 3 years. Who knows where the fuck they're gonna go during that time? We're not putting fucking, like dog tracking chips in their necks.
I think they got tracking bracelets in a lot of instances, which is also what the Trump administration has done. But literally, Biden took steps to speak with Mexico and actually get them to enforce the caravans or the groups of people to not come and lower the encounters.
So you're telling me that
during
Biden
that time
appealed to the
period.
Mexican government, which is basically, which you and I both know. Come on, dude. We both know that's run by the cartel. To stop the cartels.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Okay.
So as much as I
I want to
believe
make sure I want to make sure it
95%,
sounds right to you.
as
Hold on,
much
I
as
wanna
I
make sure this
believe
sounds
95% of the border crossings have ended, is as much as I believe that. I don't know how effective either were.
The number of reported crossings dropped by 95% when Trump went into office.
Yeah, by who's reporting?
The DHS, I believe.
Because I'm going to say I don't necessarily trust their numbers, but I'll have to accept it if that's what they're saying. But I cannot believe that, especially with the idea that, like, literally between Obama and Biden, like, both have deported more than Trump did in either of his administrations thus far.
Not a second. In the first 11 days after Trump's inauguration, Border Patrol apprehensions along the southern border were reported to fall about 85% compared to the same period in the year before. Nationwide border encounters in January of 2025 are about 66% lower than in January of 24, and 34% lower than in December of 24. Southwest border encounters in February were about 80% lower than January of 2025. Apprehensions between ports of entry at the southwest border reportedly dropped 94% compared to February of 24. And this is all coming from Homeland Security.
Yeah, gonna say I don't necessarily trust those numbers, but I'll just accept that for what it is. And it's 95% less, but yeah.
I know how stats work, right? Like, if something had like a 10%, if a disease has a 10% lethality rate and they say that, that's now gone up by 80%, it's not saying that the disease has a 90% lethality rate. It's saying that it has an 18% lethality rate. All right. So whatever the border crossings were when Trump took office, whatever that was, it now dropped 95% of whatever that was. So I understand the distinction there. I'm not saying that it's, I'm actually, well, no, that wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, because what I'm saying, it was at peak in 2019. It was insane in 2019.
Look, why do you think we have to build a wall was so popular?
And still trying to get that wall built across the Rio Grande is a fool's errand.
Yeah, I do want to get into that. Why is it impossible to build a wall along the bank of the Rio Grande?
A, treaties. B, the depth of the water at the Rio Grande varies.
Can we just put it on? Okay, so do we have to put it in the river itself, or couldn't we just put it on U.S. soil?
Yeah, they were going to try to put it on U.S. soil, which is also going to basically invoke eminent domain from a lot of people that own land across there. There's also contesting of what land is actually America's land and what land is Mexico's land. Also protected waterways. Like, there's a lot of things that make it impossible to build.
No, it doesn't make it impossible. You know what we do? We're the United States. We put the fucking wall down and we tell Mexico, tough shit, deal with it. What are they going to do about it? Mexico's going to declare war on the United States? Come on, you and I both know that's laughable. And the United States government declares eminent domain for plenty of other things that are even more that are useless compared to that.
So now we're breaking treaties and global laws. Like, we're just going to be the villains on the global stage now.
What would make us the villain for that? Because we enforced our border.
Basically,
the same thing Mexico does, by the way.
I don't see where Mexico has tried to take contested land from the U.S.
I see where Mexico has built a southern border wall.
Yeah, not across the Rio Grande, my dude.
No, they built a southern border wall.
Yeah, we have wall all across there. It's just not continuous. So there's large gaps in the border wall.
Here's the thing. If we have large sections of wall and then sections of gaps, we have much less area to patrol now, don't we?
So what you could do is just create basic entry points and allow for people to be screened.
Like a door?
No, not at all. Just
No,
allow
I'm saying
people
like
to
a
come in.
door. Like, okay, how do you get through a wall?
There's definitely gates along the wall.
Exactly. There's doors.
They already exist. I'm saying don't remove people at that point. Allow for the screening process, much like how people are coming for
Why?
asylum.
If they're coming in
just
here
let
not
people
going to a
through.
port of entry, get them out.
So you can go ahead and get them out. If that's what you want to do, you're basically just saying, hey, our economy is going to be just fine without them, which is proven has not been the case. Like, I don't see how this works for you.
Okay, hold on. So you're telling me that our economy is going to collapse if we don't allow Juan to come in and pick the cabbage?
Yeah, our economy has been hurt by this issue. It's already been seen.
It's been seen. I'm sorry, my grocery prices haven't gone up.
Are you serious? My grocery prices are going insane. Most people are saying groceries and basic goods cost more.
Well, yeah, you live in Southern California. I mean, it's just a communist wasteland at that point. Or I don't know if you said Southern, but you live in California, dude. It's a communist wasteland at that point.
Yeah,
Look, people keep saying California should secede, and it's like, you know what? I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah,
I think I'm okay
cool.
with California seceding. I'll just say it.
Yeah, as far as I'm understanding, grocery prices across the entire United States have gone up by as
At
much
least
as
in our area. I mean, to be fair, I
as
do
much
live
as
in a smaller,
4%?
like a smaller farm town.
Yeah,
But-
12-month grocery price increase. Colorado 2.9, Arizona 3.3, Carolina 3.5. Like all across the United States, grocery.
Now,
prices
I'll
are
just grant
going
you.
up.
Hold on, I'll grant you there might be initial price jumps too. If you let's say we were to enforce this on mass, right? And we were like just to start, every time we come across a farm field and we see the painted school bus and we just come in and we just load them all back up onto that bus and we just deport them right then and there, right? We just launch them with a trebuchet over the wall, right? We just do that. We put a big trampoline on the other side so that they'll be all right. Right? We do that. I'm not saying initially there aren't going to be, price increases for things like groceries. But what's going to happen is the United States citizens are going to come in and start taking over these jobs because somebody has to do it. Why do people go to work, shitty jobs like on the fucking oil rig on the oceans where they're getting fucking blasted with wind and snow and ice? Why do people take, deep water, underwater welding, right? Where they're literally in a chamber. If any part of it goes wrong, their fucking skull explodes, right? Why do people do jobs like this, right? Because we can offer them incentives. Come do this job that nobody wants to do. You'll get paid quite a bit of money for it because the supply is high, the demand's low.
So
right?
interesting. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, we lower the supply of that. That's necessarily going to increase the spending power of the United States citizen if we increase their wages. And I'm not saying we increase their wages artificially by like just increasing the dollar print and using inflation. I'm saying what we do is we have to increase the demand for labor by removing some of the supply. And some of the supply is here illegally, and that's a great place to start.
So you said that California is a wasteland, right?
No, I said I was being tongue in cheek.
No, I got you. So like, I want to bring up the idea, like here in California, you got $20 minimum fast food wage.
Yeah, the problem with artificially establishing a really high minimum wage is that businesses can't afford it. Like especially with the tax rates of California. Why do you think so many businesses are leaving California?
So why do you think they implemented a $20 minimum wage?
Because they're a bunch of socialists who say that we need a universal basic income, and they try and do this artificially rather than letting the market do what it's supposed to do.
So it wouldn't be because they would have 2 to 3 people on a shift taking care of hundreds of people to the point where they got burned out and people just stopped showing up for shifts and they just weren't selling anything at all?
Well, whose fault? Why is it the government has to mandate what the minimum wage is? That should be ultimately the problem. Like, let me ask you, if you have a business and your business is fucking running shittily, should the government come in and give you a handout to keep your business afloat, or should you fucking suffer the consequences of being a bad businessman?
No, I think you should suffer the consequences.
Right. So trying to establish a $20 minimum wage, what that does is it basically is forcing a company's hand. How are they going? So okay, let me ask you something. Let's say the minimum wage is $20 an hour, like you just said. And it's a company like, McDonald's. We'll just take McDonald's. That's a great example. You're telling me that it requires $20 an hour to flip a burger? Like McDonald's was designed for that kind of market, was for senior citizens and high schoolers to earn some extra cash. Right? Like that's literally how that was the employment model of McDonald's when it started. And McDonald's, by the way, has never made their money in the food. That was never where they made their money. They make their money in retail. That's why the food tastes like shit and it's all garbage. They don't care about the food. It's not high quality food. You want high quality food, you go to a real restaurant where you got to pay a little more. But if you force a company to pay a minimum wage that they did not plan on paying, how are they going to account for that extra spending that they now have to do?
They account for the spending by making sure that their workers are handled and that they're still taking in profit.
No,
So
they're
if
going to
nobody
increase
wants
the
to
price
work-
of goods. They're going to increase the price of goods.
Yes and no. So like when In-N-Out had to raise the
Dude, the Big Mac
minimum
was like
wage,
$2.50 in like 2000. Okay, it's like $10 now for a Big Mac.
That's exactly what I was going to get at. So a double here in California was like $4.50. It went up to $5.
Don't you be smart's a good name of In-N-Out. I may be out in the Midwest, but it's my favorite restaurant ever anywhere. I love In-N-Out.
So they went above the $20 minimum wage. I think they're doing $25 for the minimum wage, and the price of their burgers only went up like 25 cents.
Well, In-N-Out's also they're also a private like Christian organization. There's tons of people who would give who assist with that. But not only that, right? But most companies can't afford to do that, dude. Like, let's be realistic here. Flipping burgers ain't fucking worth $20 an hour. That's a very low skill job. Like, you don't need to be real fucking smart to figure out that, like, on this side when it starts to sizzle, you can flip it over, right? And then you put, you sit there. It doesn't take. It's not rocket surgery to make a McDonald's McGriddle, dude. That's not worth $20 an hour. Like, can we agree that's not worth $20 an hour?
That's if you're assuming that's all they're doing. If you're flipping the burgers, you're doing customer service, you're taking orders, you're doing quality control, and there's only two of you there. Nobody can take a break. You're working like extra hours. People aren't coming in for their shifts. Eventually, you're the only person that shows up for a work shift, and you decide, I'm not even going to open up today. And your employer is sitting there like, where's all my employees? Why does nobody want to work? Guess who's not making any money?
Yes. So why should the government come in and say, okay, you have to do a minimum $20 minimum wage, rather than letting that fucking business fail because clearly their model is bad?
Well, you do understand that if the workers don't make enough money, they're going to get state welfare anyway. So it's incumbent on the state to make sure they have to pay out less welfare in any particular frame of time. So making sure that the employees are making enough money not to be on welfare if possible is kind of an important thing to do.
Yeah, I grant that to you, but there are other jobs than working at McDonald's. Dude, like McDonald's should not be a $20 an hour job.
So you're saying McDonald's should go out of business?
Yes, I'm okay with McDonald's going out of business if their business model sucks. That's the whole point of free market capitalism is if your business model sucks, you go out of business, right? You want to make $20 an hour? Go become a contractor. Go pour concrete. Go become a welder. Go become an electrician. Go do something that's an actual skillful and useful trade, like, skill that people need and they're willing to pay good money for. Like there's like, okay, so like so I have family, like my family grew up in Southern California. I didn't, but like my parents.
Good
right?
on them.
Right? They're contractors. Been doing construction since he was 15. There's a phrase that was very popular in California then. It's probably still now, and I know it is out here in the Midwest. If you find a good contractor, keep them, because they're hard to come by. Good tradesmen are hard to come by. Any idiot can install a toilet, but it actually takes somebody who cares about their job and somebody with actual skill to not leave a massive mess, to make sure it goes in and it looks right. There's actual skill that goes into doing construction. A lot of people think it's just dumb, hit the nail with the hammer. There's actually a lot of skill, thought process, mathematics, a lot of complex geometry that goes into doing construction well, right? That's a skill that people are willing to pay for. Flipping burgers ain't a fucking skill. Any idiot can do it. You don't deserve $20 an hour flipping a burger.
So anecdotally, and it's really irritating to me since, especially in California, we had the National Guard come in and forcibly remove a bunch of people. When I had to move recently, I had to hire some people to install some things. Guess who showed up to install my stuff?
A bunch of people who were underpaid because they weren't here legally.
Well, I'm saying ethnically, who do you think showed up to install my stuff?
I have no idea. I'm sure you could say they were probably. Are they Mexican? At the point?
No, I was hoping it would have been Mexicans because it would have been done right. In this case, it was Russians. Every message I got back was in Cyrillic, and when they got here, they're like looking up Chat GPT to figure out how to install my stuff.
Yeah, I think that's stupid, but I'm saying good contractors, right? Like good contractors, people will pay good fucking money for them. Here's the thing, you know, if they do the job and it looks like fucking shit and it doesn't, you know, it's not up to standard, it's not up to snuff. You know, you can easily get another contractor to come take a look at that and go, yeah, this is fucking wrong. And then you can then take those other people and go, yeah, I ain't fucking paying you. You fucked this all up.
What we need is better enforcement of contractors, licenses, more reporting of people that are working illegally. Because like I don't like looking out on the corner and seeing that somebody's, you know, selling oranges or whatever without a license, and I can't go out and do that. I can't go pick up oranges and go sell them on the corner and get away with it because I don't have a license. So these are things that need to be enforced. Like all these things would somewhat allow for what you want, which is more people getting deported for breaking laws. But for some reason, we don't want to look toward more enforcement. We don't want to look toward more personnel, which is more jobs for people, which is more money, which is higher GDP with more people putting money into the system.
Because I don't want to increase the size of the government. I just want the government to actually enforce the laws that we currently have.
I mean, right? I'm talking local enforcement, like your own city, your own county
cops
does that. Yeah, pretty much.
I'm trying to understand. I thought we were talking about the border here.
Yeah, I'm saying the border enforcement isn't going to work the way you want it to. Because like I said, you have over 40...
Do we have to deport people if they didn't come here in the first place? Like they didn't illegally come in?
No.
Are we going to have to deport anywhere near as many people?
Unless we could guarantee that nobody can get in.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, because that's the case with that. That's not the case with any law. There's literally no law in the books that we apply this way of saying if we can guarantee nobody will do it, then we can make it illegal. But otherwise, it's off hands, man.
So
like there are people that still fucking murder when murder is illegal. So what I'm saying is, if we enforce heavily, and I mean, I'm okay with violent enforcement of the border. Right? It's very simple. These are our rules. You do not cross our border illegally. If you want to come into the United States, you have to go through a process to do that so we can actually know who's coming into the United States. And it's going to be a long and tenuous process. It's not, you know, it's not unreasonable. Like, do you just let random strangers into your house?
I mean, when I was getting my stuff installed, I did, but not usually.
That was because you had a contractual agreement with them or something of the like, and you're trying to, but you're not even a stranger to this person at that point. Like, you've never met them in person, but at least you have an idea of who they are, what they know, or what's going on here. It's not like, you know, if some random dude just knocks on my apartment and is like, hey, can I come in? Fuck you. No, you can't come in. What the fuck's wrong with you? Why should we have a different standard for our nation, which is our home? Of just letting any old fucking, you know, any old guy who just wants to come in, just letting them in. Which is what an open border policy is, right? You don't know what kind of people you're bringing in there. They might not even have to have a criminal record to be criminals. You agree that not all people who are criminals have a criminal record, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So how would you even enforce that? Like, how would you keep somebody who's like an MS-13 gang member but has no prior arrest from coming into the country if we have an open border policy?
And I'm saying they're getting in anyway. Even with our border policies and the amount of money that we spend on the border and enforcement, they're still getting in. There's still a persistent problem. So we need to have better ways of tracking these people down and getting them out of the country, especially
and tell your governors to stop freaking out every time we send ICE into a city.
They're not removing those people. They're removing normal working people.
They are trying to remove those people, though. Those are that is actually so. Like, you understand that, like, there's like a hierarchy of priorities when ICE goes into a city, right? They're not just going and looking for the guy who's painting without a license. They are actually originally their main goal is to start with the violent people. We need to get the MS-13 gang members out. We need to get the Tren de Araguan gang members out. You know, the satanic tattooed, you know, face tattooed child bangers out. We need to get those people out, right? Dude, there was like entire apartment complexes taken over by Tren de Aragua in Colorado. Can you imagine if Americans went into Mexico and took over a fucking block of Mexico City? How well that would go over?
I mean, Tren de Aragua, New Jack City does sound interesting, but I don't think it bore out the way that they said so in the news. Most of the people didn't agree that that's what happened. But all the same,
well, yeah, because Colorado, they're all fucking progressive liberals. And they're like, no, it's fine. We love that, you know, we're scared to walk into our apartment because I'm a diversity and I don't want to be racist. And it's like, no, there's nothing racist about saying I don't want gang members running my apartment complex. Yeah, but they're too afraid to be called racist too.
Again, it remains to be seen that that's what happened. But what I'm saying is they initially wanted to go after violent offenders and criminals. That's what they said they were going to do. That's what they initially tried to do.
Just so you're aware. all of them are criminals. Every single person who crossed the border illegally is by definition a criminal.
Yeah, I'd say a misdemeanor is not exactly what we want to be looking for on the priority list. When you're talking about Tren de Aragua, MS-13, I can agree with you. Like violent criminals, drug dealers, you know, people
How about
that
people
are
who just come
breaking
here and
serious
abuse our
laws.
systems? Like, should we like stop them?
I think we can catch that through regular fraud enforcement. Like that's not really a big issue in my head.
And
I
how do
think
you
we
track
should be
people?
enforcing
How do you
that.
track people that don't have a social security number? They don't have a driver's license. They're not registered to anything in the United States. You have no idea who or what they are. You don't even know what they look like.
Give them a social security number. If they're willing to have one, that's another step towards citizenship. If they're breaking the laws, getting fake social security numbers, that's going to be part of their ticket out of
Like,
here.
do you think that that's like just a good concept? Like, just because somebody wants to come here, we should then give them a social security number because they want to become like. I would be like, if your argument here was like, we should do something similar to like service guarantee citizenship, right? Like you come in and for like multiple years, unpaid, voluntary through the state, like you come in and you like, let's say you're like a volunteer firefighter or a volunteer EMS worker, or you're you know, you sign up for the military in some way. And you also have to renounce any claims to your previous nation. I'm not even opposed to systems like that, you know, service guaranteeing citizenship. But I don't want people coming to the United States so they can go fucking pick crops for $2 an hour, which is ultimately going to be not only be like, it's for one, it's just immoral to do it to them, dude. Like you're literally just getting slaves. How is
I'm
that not
inclined to
slavery?
agree with you. No, I'm inclined to agree with you, and I would like to, like I said, find the people that are hiring people illegally
I'll give you full agreement
and
here.
enforce labor laws against that. If they're doing so, they need to file it. They need to let it be known. There needs to be taxes. There needs to be all these things. Enforcement is the key when it comes down to all these things. Unfortunately, like
Yeah, I do agree
we
with you,
don't have
enforcement
it.
is the key.
So like we just
But what's
deployed
easier to
recently
manage?
a
Hold on,
dude
what's
that
easier
was
to manage? Letting in millions of people, or you know, over the span of years, letting in millions of people come in, and just adding more and more and more and more people that need to be tracked and kept track of, so that we know that they're not breaking the law, or not letting them come in the first place, or at least significantly reducing the numbers. Like, what's an appropriate number of people to legally migrate to the United States in a year? What seems appropriate?
I never thought about that in particular. I would say, like, what's the usual?
Right now, it's 1
immigration?
million, which is it's an unsustainable number if we keep that number up.
Yeah, I would say that's close to a number that actually is sustainable.
No, I don't think it's sustainable, and here's why it's not. It's sustainable if your ultimate goal is to replace the native population in the United States. Because the problem is, what we need to do in the United States, we need to incentivize more Americans to have children because they're not. Our birth rate in the United States is way below replacement, and what we're doing is we're just pulling people from mostly very religious groups such as Roman Catholics, Orthodox, Muslims. These people, they from their view, have a divine command to reproduce and have children. That's like part of their obligations to God from their view, right? If we keep bringing people like that in, and our people aren't having children, you're going to replace the population of the United States. You're literally just going to replace them. And why would they adopt our systems that clearly didn't fucking work if they're replacing us? Like clearly that system didn't work. Their system did. Their lineage continues. And instead, we're like, don't have kids because of climate change or whatever the fuck.
I mean, honestly, we're not having. Go ahead.
Oh, did you want to answer it quick?
Yeah, like honestly, we're not having kids because like literally we can't afford to have kids. We don't have childcare. We don't have.
And why do the poorest
means
people in
to
the
do
world
so.
have the most amount of children, sir?
And why are the poorest people in the world involved in CPS so much? Like,
No. No, the poorest people
All right.
globally.
All right. So that right there is going to wrap up the open floor. We're going to move into the closing statements. Each debater is going to get 5 minutes to make their final case here. So we're going to start off with LetheWaterKai, and that'll give Steelborne the last word. So, Lethe, whenever you are ready for your closing statement, I will start the timer up with your voice.
all right, we are good to go. So ultimately, what I say is enforcement of immigration is the better way to ensure that our money is best spent, making sure that more Americans have jobs. We are more secure, more aware of who is in the country, what they're doing, how things are going, real numbers of immigration, as we have to sit here and constantly speculate about what the actual numbers of illegals are. If we were able to have a more robust system of tracking people and keeping tabs on our immigrant status of the immigrant status of people in the country, I think overall we would have better outcomes. Trying to enforce a border and keep people out at stake of people's lives in some instances, even the people that are enforcing the laws at the border, is probably untenable and not the best way to handle things. When you already have 40% of the people immigrating here, staying here on overstayed visas, and we don't know where they are, what they're doing, what crimes are being done, that's probably a fault of the system at hand. And so when we already understand we're not even going to be able to keep 40% of the people out, and that 50 to 55% is coming through the border itself, and a lot of these people are finding their way into the country, asylum seekers, so many different ways that they're getting in, why not just find a more tenable way of handling these things? So I would say making sure that people aren't sitting there waiting for court cases for upwards of half a decade is probably a good thing. When you're deporting people that served in the military for 15 years because of their immigration status, I think that's a bad thing. That's a person that wanted to fight for this country and was willing to be here. They were willing to face the consequences, and now they got deported. Well, self-deported, unfortunately. And this, I believe that dude was Asian. So like people from all different walks in this world want to be here in this country and want to participate in the great experiment that is America. I don't see why they shouldn't be able to, and why they shouldn't be able to like actually show that they're a good addition to this country. We appreciate every single culture. You want to be able to go out and get good tacos. You want to be able to go out and get good Chinese food. You want to be able to go out and experience other cultures, festivals, all the things that, you know, the world has to offer without even having to go to another country. Why should we have to go to their country? They should be able to come here and experience everything that they experience. And I don't believe there's like a slippery slope where all of a sudden Sharia law is going to be in place in Texas. I've heard this happen before. There's no way natural born Americans are going to allow for this. Like, even if it were 200 years down the line, just the values and the way America functions is not going to allow for that outcome. But, you know, if we think and we're so scared that allowing other cultures into this country is not going to make them more like us and we're going to become more like them, maybe their system is better. And I don't believe that's the case. I believe they came here for a reason, and eventually they're going to see our way is better, as they always have. Many different cultures throughout the world view American culture to be superior and adopt American culture. Japan has done it. Korea has done it. Everyone's doing what we did. Like, I don't see why we can't allow people to come here and do the same thing for us. Like, why can't we have a vibrant K-pop community going on in America and be making the money from that? Like, we can do all of these things and it can be very well functioning, and we don't have to worry about security as long as we have these things on the books. We can tell who's in here, who's doing what. A better vetting system is by far the best, and we don't want to make the same mistakes that we made in World War II and subject an entire group of people to nearly being genocided just because we don't want to get involved. And so we're going to sit there and allow entire areas and regions of the world to fall apart and fall to tyranny, only for it to end up on our doorstep eventually. Why not be proactive in this? We can do something. We can do more. We're the wealthiest and strongest country on the planet. Why not show it? And that's my time.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement, Lethe. And with that, we are going to hand it over to Steelborne for your closing statement. And whenever you're ready, Steelborne, I will start the timer up with your voice.
Yeah, so I want to start with ultimately he never demonstrated why it is that we should actually, you know, we shouldn't enforce our border. Like, we shouldn't be spending money on enforcing the border to prevent people from coming in. And instead we should just give everybody citizenship, just grant them all citizenship, just give all of them citizenship, right? That's just fine, right? Because then more Americans will have jobs. Yeah, in a technical sense, sure. If you just classify them as American, then yeah, I mean, I guess more Americans would have jobs. But what about the native population? Are more of them going to have jobs? If so, it's all basic, simple supply and demand. The more supply, the lower the demand, which means lower wages, right? You can literally track this. Every time we've increased our labor supply, the wages have gone down. You can go back to when there was the massive push to put women into the workforce. The men's wages stagnated. It had to have, and it did, because we've now doubled the labor pool. Every time you increase the labor pool, your demand for labor goes down, which means wages are going to go down. You have less bargaining power for your wages. The thing about the guy who the soldier who got, who self-deported, there's also there's been massive incentives pushed upon that, because self-deportees can re-immigrate. They're still allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with somebody doing that. And also this idea of, why should we get involved in every single foreign conflict that comes awry, and because it's just ultimately going to end on our doorstep. No, that's no guarantee that it's ultimately going to end on our doorstep. You know what? You have no justification for that. You just fucking made it up. And also, Americans are really fucking tired of getting involved in foreign wars, dude. I mean, we've been tired of it since Vietnam. Nobody wants to be involved in foreign war. We had no business going to Vietnam. We had no business going to Iraq, Iran. Nobody wanted to be there. We all fucking hated it. I talked to every veteran who went to Iraq and Iran, and they say they fucking hated it. But none of that. It was super unpopular with the American people. After like 2 years at best, it was unpopular. Nobody wanted us to be there anymore. There was no point in sending our soldiers to go die, in Afghanistan, when Afghanistan didn't implement our system. And why would they? Like, from their view, Abdul get the rock because she took off her burqa is better than having our quote unquote democracy and, our republic, which I don't even think we have a republic anymore. The republic to me seems to be dead. But his whole argument the entire time was just my GDP go up. The GDP go uppy up. I know the GDP go up. Is that necessarily good? Well, what if we both eat shit and the GDP went up $200? Is that good? No. But so then is the GDP going up necessarily good? Yes. That's literally P and not P. That's a performative contradiction. If the GDP go up in this instance and it's bad, and the GDP go up in this instance and it's good, is GDP going up necessarily good? Yes. That can't be the case if this one, the GDP goes up and it's still not good. And he never made a strong... the main thing about this is a really simple argument. Your guest list does not secure your front door and keep people out who aren't supposed to be there. Your locks and your guard dog or your security guard, if you have one of those, I'm saying, like, that's what ultimately enforces that. Pieces of paper do not enforce that, nor do they prevent it. Like, criminals do not respect the law. That's why they're by definition a criminal, right? So they don't care what is made illegal. They're going to do it anyways. That's what they've chosen to do. If you have a piece of paper saying you can't do that, you can't, no, you can't do it. I said, no, that doesn't fucking mean shit. Enforcement, somebody putting a fucking, an M16 to their head and saying, you better fucking stop this shit, cut it out real quick. It's a little more like they're a little more likely to comply, right? All law is backed by force. It has to be. It's all backed by, at the very least, the implicit threat of force, which is why people even respect the laws to begin with. And there are plenty of people who don't respect the laws, right? But when the laws are enforced, you have a much more cohesive society. You keep trying to, and when you try to immigrate people from different cultures with different ethics and different worldviews to our nation who don't share our values, that's going to be a cultural clash, right? For example, Muslims hate feminism. All of them hate feminists, and they hate feminism, the whole movement. They hate all of it, right? And they're doing everything in their power to get that pushed out and get it done with. They also hate, the fundamentalist Muslims at the very least. They hate Christians and they hate Christianity, right? They hate Jews. They hate every one of these groups. Bringing a bunch of them in, that doesn't seem like it's going to bode well for the people who are here who aren't that group. And he's over here, he's smiling like, oh my God, this is so ridiculous. And go over and look at Londinistan. Does it seem like a great place to be with, Tommy Robinson over there? And he's actually getting quite a bit of political movement there because people look around, they see the problem, and they go, yeah, this is a fucking problem. Mass immigration needs to stop now. That I'll see the rest of my 1 second.
All right. Thank you for that closing statement. And that right there concludes the closing statement. And again, great work from both the debaters tonight. One last reminder, make sure you subscribe to both the debaters. Their links are in the description. And if you're enjoying these debates, hit the subscribe on the SpeakeaZy channel as well, so you don't miss any upcoming Swords of Reason debates, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. This is where logic meets passion.